Righto, boys, it's the Culture Couch live again. Unfortunately, missing one of our members but that's okay.
Where is he?
March on again. He's busy. He's working feverishly, which is good. Emil, Jez, how are you?
G'day, Rosie.
Rosie, Emil.
Excellent. Let's get straight into it. We've got a very good question. They're always good questions, but this one probably take us a little bit of time to navigate. Let me just read it out. So this is from Mary. I am a small, medium business owner, and 6 months ago we embarked on a culture change. We're seeing some great people coming into the organisation, but some of our long-term staff are now starting to push back. How do we stay the course? Interesting question. Very, very good question. And I guess it's probably something, boys, that most, and we talk about it all the time, don't we? Culture changes gradually, either negatively or positively. So it's not something that's going to jump out and hit you in the head. But I think the interesting thing for me, before I hand over to you, Murph, we're seeing good people come into the organisation. That's one of the first things, because I talk about culture travelling. You know, if you start to get your behaviours right, people from other industries, people from within your industry want to jump on board. But what is the greatest challenge for Mary at the moment? And I suspect those longer term employees, typical, they've done things, you know, the same way over and over and over again. Yeah. All of a sudden they're getting held accountable, behaviours, this is the way we act, and it's becomes really difficult for them. What's your advice to Mary?
Yeah, this is like the critical point for Mary. So there's a couple of points in this, and you would understand this more than most, Ruzi, is around it's lonely as a leader. So you put in place a process, and then you put a lot of faith and trust in that, and then you have to hold the course.
Yeah.
The issue you have is that when things start to get a little bit shaky from a sporting sense, if you lose a couple of games, then you run the risk of actually saying, well, I wonder if this is going to work. But the truth is you actually have to hold the course. You've got to put trust and faith in the decision and strategy you've made and the people you've got on board with you. Now, that notwithstanding, is if you're going to make cultural change, then there is always going to be people who will push back against the changes you're making.
Yeah.
And they may or may not make the journey. So that's where you have to support them. But whatever you do, don't let them off the hook. So there's always critical moments, I always think, in your journey where someone does something that breaches what you're trying to achieve or do, and everyone's watching. The whole organization's watching. And if you don't take a stance on that thing, it may not even be a big thing, but if you let it go, then everyone goes, oh, okay, he or she isn't serious. So be prepared, Mary, to really push hard on the on holding people to account over the next few weeks, because you've got to make sure you've got your weight of numbers coming with you. And you also have to be really careful you've identified your centers of influence, because if you haven't got your centers of influence coming with you, then that also will hurt you. So it's probably a long-winded way to answer it, Ruzi, but it's really important that we make sure we don't let people off the hook when they behave badly.
And I think to that, Murph, I mean, I would be staggered to think that Mary didn't know the people that were going to cause the trouble, because we sort of already know that when we start. So you need, in the early stages of what we do, Emil, you need that preparation time as the leader, the CEO, the coach, the business owner, to say, well, this is likely going to happen. We're likely going to get, Murph's going to jump on board really quickly, and we're likely to get some pushback from Emil. And it's the weight of numbers and the centres of influence that you were talking about, Murph, that are really important. How long, Emil, I'll put this to you, how long do you leave it before you have to do something dramatic about those people that are pushing back? So your weighted numbers are moving firmly, by the sound of it, Mary. They're moving nicely in the affirmative. We're starting to get some really good buy-in from everyone, but we've got, 2, 3, 4 people that we don't think are ever going to change. How long do we wait?
Yeah, that was the first thing I wrote down when you asked the question. Have you got the right people off your bus? So 6 months, she said she's done this. Pretty critical time now. In my experience doing this work with clients, I often find around the 9th and 10th week, there's a pivotal moment where the people who are generally pretty good performers, but, challenge the behavior piece, and we need to have that conversation about behavior. They make a decision if they want to act their way in or act their way out. If this has been going on now for 6 months, I would have suggested it's pretty critical she put some time around to get really clear on the behaviours. She needs to see these people who are pushing back change, so very clear on the 1 to 2, and then put a system in place to go, right, we want to see this behaviour change by this date, and have little checkpoints. And then if the people don't act their way into that sort of next quadrant where they are getting good results and are doing what's best for the team culturally, then you have to have that harsh conversation, because you've got to get the data points to prove that they don't deserve to be there. And that comes up in the behavior piece, which is the more challenging conversation, because you can always generally upskill good people. You can train them. But yeah, she's got to wrap some time around those people now and hold them accountable changing behavior, or she lays the risk of losing these new good people who go, you know what, she's full. This is BS. It's not. We're saying this, but we're doing that.
It can take 6 months, though, Emil, because the truth about it is that the people who don't necessarily want to come on the journey, they'll sit back and watch. They will actually just sit back and keep an eye on things and go, I wonder where this is going to go. Like, I may not have to do anything here. And someone else might do the hard work for me. So I think that's the first thing. So sometimes people who aren't coming on the journey don't necessarily appear early. They'll sit back and hope like hell that someone else is going to do the hard work for them. I've got a friend who works in the education system, and he said that he was going to take on a staff member in the staff that wasn't doing the right thing. And I just said to him, have you got the support of your principal? And he said, I'm sure he'll do the right thing. And I said, look, don't take this on without the support of your principal. And he did, and it ended really badly because what happened was that the principal didn't support him, and then everyone stood back and went, oh wow, well, the principal clearly isn't going to hold this person to account. And then my mate ended up in a really difficult spot. Right. So you've got to make sure that the leaders, and this is for Mary, she has to hold it to account. And then just to pick up one other point there, Emil, is that sometimes people won't initially jump on board, but then once they've been given the support and the feedback, they will.
Yeah, so that's right.
And the best example of that's Geelong Footy Club, where we had a couple of really significant incidents early. And people were giving feedback, and we were all questioning, is this going to work? Is this going to work? But eventually, everyone jumped on, and it did, and then it becomes unstoppable.
Yeah,
I think that's the difference, Murph, isn't it? And Emil, you touched on it. Having come from a footy background, it's the little and often conversations. It's so eventually there's just no wiggle room in a good system, because you review the game on a Monday. You do the individual player review, and you talk about were you a blood today, did you tick off all the boxes for our behaviours. But in corporate world, Emil, I think you made a great point. We put it in, and we don't have enough check-ins along the way for people to act their way in or act their way out. And eventually, if the more check-ins you have, and it's funny, people ask me all the time, was it difficult to give you to let players go at the end of the year? My answer was no. Because you do so many check-ins over the course of the year, it's incredibly rare that a player walks in at their final meeting and goes, "Oh, gee, I didn't see this."
And that's
Rizzy,
right. Rizzy,
that's right.
Have you seen examples where sort of the system's been put in place, but then it hasn't held the course, and so
100%,
it falls away?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was interesting. Some of in doing the appointment for North Melbourne just recently with the coach, with David Noble. So what I did is a lot of background checking on coaches and all that, and without mentioning specific clubs, I rang a lot of old teammates and old people I coached, and unequivocally, Murph, the teams that have dropped the standards are the ones that are struggling. There's no question, because it is, Mary. It's not. We're not suggesting it's easy, but it works. Let's be really clear. And it just hit me with a ton of bricks when I was making all the phone calls. That the teams that maintained their standard and the coaches that understood it, Brisbane Lions, where David has come from, with Chris Fagan and the way he set up his system. Why are they now going in the right direction? Because they're holding standards. The teams, again, without mentioning them, we probably all know, we talk about talent-based teams. The teams that are relying purely on talent and are turning a blind eye, to Mary's question, they're turning a blind eye. The coach is turning a blind eye to poor standards. They're the ones that are dropping off. It is so stark, boys, isn't it? Even in this COVID period, Murph, where we've been doing a lot, and Emil, doing a lot of check-ins now at the start of the year, as we move into this next phase, the feedback is unequivocal, isn't it? Oh, the systems work because we've held people accountable. Oh, gee, we probably didn't do enough of it. We need to start it again. But and again, I'll probably ask you guys the same question. Examples from corporate world, again, without mentioning name, I'm sure you've got plenty of those as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I love the annual reviews. You get an annual review, outside consultant comes in, everyone says something about the person. The consultant then reads from the report and says, Roosie, the team reckons this about you. You're left there going, all right, cool, that's good. And then come back a year later and get pretty much the same feedback, and there's no system in place to check in on it. So for Mary, it might be, have you got enough systems in place to check in on the behaviour? Because eventually people get sick of going, all right, I'm gonna be more respectful in the conversation. They'll just get sick of being told the same thing. And that's where they've got that choice to make. And that's why that conversation about behaviour, particularly to Jez's point, the centres of influence and the people that are on the fence, sit them down, get really clear. I need you to jump on board here, and this is the behaviour, check-ins, and then, to Waz's last word, data points to see if they want to be inside the system.
I think also don't ever underestimate the power of just doing small reviews as you go along.
That's it.
That reinforce good behaviours. So what happens there is that people who are equivocating about whether to come with you or not, they actually start to make the decision, I can see this isn't going to go my way, so therefore I better start to make some choices. Or they might even choose to go away, but keep rewarding the good behaviour. So too often in this, it's a bit like the naughty year 10 boy in a classroom. You spend your whole time trying to make him behave instead of focusing on the other 25 kids that are behaving well. So keep focusing, Mary, on the people that are doing it well, because that will also force the others to come, or it'll drive a wedge and it'll become really clear. So, but holding the line's really important as a leader, and trust yourself and trust the process you're putting in place.
Yeah, particularly, Murph, isn't it? I mean, if you're having regular Friday sales meetings or meetings and you're always pointing out the things that you do well, what happens to that new person that comes in the culture? They pick it up really quickly. Oh, okay. Murph really likes it when we turn up on time. Murph really likes it when we dress appropriately. So all of a sudden, the wording becomes really easy and really important. So we picked that up really quickly. Just to finish, a mate of mine had a great technique as well, Murph, and I used to play footy with him, and he told me some stories really about this. And he'd start off and he'd do regular reviews. And at the start, it'd be something like, gee, Emil, you're really struggling with this new program we're putting in place. How can I help you? And, the next week it'd be, you're just not picking it up, are you? Am I doing anything wrong? Or, the next week it is, gee, we might have to find you somewhere else to go. Do you want me to help you try and find another job? And it was, I said, how'd that work? He said, it's amazing. By week 4, they're coming to me saying, oh, look, thanks very much. Yeah, look, I'm going to put my resume in somewhere else. So that's that little and often check-in, isn't it? So it doesn't become a surprise in your 12-month review where you go, well, you're not going very well. Because my point to that is, why have you waited 12 months to tell me
It doesn't
that
hit
I'm
him.
that I'm not going well. It's crazy the way that works, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it is. I had that exact experience over here in Canada where a couple of people were given some feedback at their annual review. We married the behaviors and their results. They've done a great job, the company. And a couple of people got blindsided. And then when we pull back the curtain, it's like, well, again, we didn't have the checkpoints. So now they've decided that they're doing quarterly reviews and an annual review. So there'll be 3 more reviews in between. So by the time they get to the annual, which is based on their compensation and bonuses, they'll be able to go straight to it, go, yep, boom, and make it an easy decision because they've had checkpoints throughout the year. So that's been really good to watch and see them make that change.
All right, boys, excellent. Well done.
Good
Great
stuff.
question.
Good question.
Mary. Hopefully
Yeah.
that's cleaned that up. And as we would always say, Mary, just keep working hard. Get your support network around. Sounds like you've got a lot of good people who are pulling in the right direction. And then eventually, again, we keep talking about they're going to act their way into the system, they're going to act their way out of the system. So be really clear on what that system is. Be really clear on what you want your cult to look like. Be really clear on rewarding, Murph, to your point, on good behaviour. And then eventually, really start the challenge and things will work out really well. So well done, boys. Thank you very much.
What are you up to today, Rizzy? You'd be having to stay at home, I guess. We're all in lockdown again.
I'm an essential worker with a sporting club, Murph.
So, you're an essential worker.
Essential worker.
Right. How does sport become essential in this day?
Well, if you want to keep the Australian Open going, that's how it works.
Is that how it works?
I think so. Murph, if you can make sense out of what's going on at the moment, you are a genius because I can't.
I'm not sure, mate. I'm sitting down here at the beach, I might just go for a stroll and think about it.
You got your 2 hours. You got your 2 hours. Go for a walk and relax. Go for a swim. Put the budgie smokers on and get down the beach.
Do I have to use it all at once?
No, I don't know. Do you? Good question.
I've got no idea.
All right, boys.
All right.
Have a good
Thanks,
week.
guys.
See you guys.
See ya.